Hello and welcome to this edition of How I Built This. In today's session, we're going to be building a project management app in Sigma. We'll do just a very quick demo, and then we're going to jump into a hands-on build so that I can show you how I built this together. I'm really excited to actually get to do this one with you. This one is very cool to me because this is actually how my team manages our work here at Sigma. I think a project management app is a perfect use case for building a data app. Because I think a lot of y'all, especially if you're coming from consulting, you've probably built many of these in Excel or Google Sheets. There's a lot of fancy project management tools out there, but the reality is I think we all come back to Google Sheets and Excel for the flexibility, the familiarity of the interface, and the portability of the product. One of the really cool things about the product that I'm going to show you right here is that it's what we would call a sourceless data app. And sourceless meaning that every bit of the data that you are actually going to interact with and use is actually going to be created by the application itself. So if you're in consulting, you could actually build this thing once and take it with you from project to project. Everywhere you go where you're implementing Sigma, you could start it off with the project tracker where you're able to launch it and be able to start putting in your projects and tasks all in one go. With that said, let's go ahead and hop into the demo. Now, I built this up to really only be two levels deep to start. So we have project level details and we have task level details. My team has recently gotten to a point where we actually are in need of program level details, so I'll be making an update to this. But it's actually architected to where it's pretty easy to just go ahead and add another level. We'll add a program that's above the project, and then every program can have many projects, every project can have many tasks. At the project level, what we keep is just a handful of columns. You have the ability to add a new project. You can see what the main columns are that we're pulling in here are. Project owner, what the work stream is, what the project name is. I really like to have a Google Doc for a lot of these types of projects where we can do a little bit more of our free-form thinking. Description, categories, whether or not it's an MBO, and in the target completion date. Now, I'm not going to add another project on here, but what I'll do is I'll actually come in and we can see all of the filters related to these. I'll filter this down to just the how I built this project that we're going to look at today. And this will actually show you all of the different comments that we've been looking at. You can see all of these together, quite a few comments all put together. I'll show you how we built this here in just a second. The ability to change the status if we want to put this. We are currently in progress, but maybe we'll say we just need review. Click on that, it'll actually do the update for us. If we wanted to add a new comment, we could do so. Very similar at the task level. So I'll actually add a new task so that we can see how that works. We'll put it for this project, how I built this. Task while recording demo. And our task priority is obviously high. We won't do a task description or comments, but we will put the due date as today, and we'll create that task. Now, I don't have a status yet, so let's go ahead and set this to in progress. And let's add a comment to go with this. And so we'll put a new comment and we will say, we have kicked off our demo. Add task comment. If I want to add another one, we can see all of that in line. You can see where it's actually been added to. Second comment. And we'll pull that in and we can click add task comments. And you can see where all of this is created. This level of commenting is something that I really like. I really like to see what the date was, who actually did the comment, and I like to see everything kind of in one row. As the project or task kind of progresses, you're able to see what were we talking about, when were we talking about, who was actually adding comments to these. The last thing I want to show here is just this project and task burn down. This allows you to, let's go ahead and clear out all of these filters. This allows you to see all of your projects in one go. You can see all of the weekly, what the task grouping is, what is actually due. You can see just your open tasks. If we look by the project, we can see what we've been doing with our SI partners for the launch, building training, finalizing our launch partners, conducting training, and we are at the point where I do believe it is time for us to go ahead and launch this thing. The last thing in this app, before we move over to the build, is we actually have rolling weekly updates. Now, this plays a little bit off of kind of the Scrum methodology, where you come in and you say, what did you accomplish yesterday? What are you planning for today? What are your blockers? So we actually do that more at a weekly level. So where you put in what is your start of week status, what is your end of week status, what's the date, just in case you're out on Friday, you can do it on the Thursday. But with that, it'll actually pull in, helps me kind of keep track of what were people doing week over week. What do they think that they're going to get started, get done at the beginning of the week? What are they actually getting done at the end of the week? So this is the app. This is what we're going to build. Like I said, we go 2 levels deep where you have projects and tasks. And we'll actually look at what that application data model that we're going to build. We have one project can have many tasks. One project can have many comments. We really only want the latest set of comments to show up in our projects. But the application that we are going to build is going to follow this application data model. I'll actually be referring back to this a couple of times whenever we get into the build. What I've done here in this workbook is I've actually pre-built a lot of the objects that we're going to need for all this, a lot of the data objects that we were just looking at. So projects, tasks, comments. And what we're going to really spend all of our time working on is doing all of the wiring to make sure that these things interact together and that we have the action set up to actually do all the inserts that we need. If you look at the lineage of what I've done here, we have our project tracker input table, we have our task tracking input table, and we have our comments input table. So the base of all of these things are back-end database tables or input tables that we are actually going to be inserting data into. We're also using 2 data validation tables, so a status type and an employee input type. So let's go ahead and get started with the wiring up of the project insert. So we have our project table. I've narrowed it down to just a handful of columns just for simplicity's sake. And then down here at the bottom, I've built the controls that we will be using to actually do our insert. So project name is freeform, project owner is pulling from that project owner, and then project status, I actually haven't wired up yet. So I have my status type input table that I preloaded here with all of the various status types that I want to make available. So what I will do is I'm actually going to set the source of this to pull from that status type table. And so now whenever I do that dropdown, I'll see all of those status types exactly where I want them. I'm going to move this back over and we'll put this over onto that data validation tab. For those of you coming from Excel world, this paradigm of having a separate table that has a list of valid values and then using those to do data validation, you should be very, very comfortable with that setup. So the one thing that we're missing here is we have all of the correct controls, but we haven't wired up this button. So I'm going to update this button to say create project. And I'm going to create the actions that need to go with it in order to actually turn this into an app. So I'll click here. I'm going to, instead of setting control value, I'm going to do what's called the insert row action. And the insert row action, it actually pulls, it says do an insert into this project tracker input table. I've got the right project name, project owner, project status, project due date. Sigma actually did all the mapping for me just based off of the column and control names. And so if I look here, I can do first project. I will set this one to me. I'll set the project status as backlog, and we'll say that that's due on Friday, and we'll click create project. And you see that row was inserted up into our project input table off of the button click. But the one thing that I'm not quite happy with is that these values are still exactly like they were before. Typically, when you're working with a form, whenever you click create or insert, you actually want to clear that form out. So I'm going to add one more action here where I'm actually going to go ahead and say clear the control. And I'm going to clear the container here. And I'm going to clear out that one, container 2. And so now if I do a second project and I assign this over to Mr. Donnie, and yeah, that 14th is fine, we'll create that project. And now you can see that these actually cleared out in the way that I would like them to. So I've got this all set up, but I don't actually really want this to be front and center on my project tracking app. So what I'll do is I'll grab this and I'm going to move it over to a modal. Now I've already pre-configured this modal in this, what I'm calling the create project modal. Just move that over a little bit. And the only other thing that I need to do with this is to click on that create project. I'll create an action. And whenever I am done creating the project, after it's done the insert, after it's cleared out the other controls, I'm going to go ahead and have it close out that modal for me. So now if I click that button, it'll do all of those actions in a row, and that sequence will actually fire correctly for me. The one thing that I do have missing here is that I don't actually have a way to trigger that modal. So the last thing for me to do is one more button, and let's actually move this thing up to the top. We'll kind of put it up here. We'll stretch it out. Maybe let's make it match that color. Give it black. And we will update this thing to say create project. And the only thing that this one needs to do is one sequence to open up that modal that we just created or just wired over to. And we will open up our modal for create the project. So now if I click create project, I can grab this. I will say this one will be our third project. I will assign this one over to Luke. I'll take this project status. We'll say that he's blocked and that his project is due tomorrow. And we'll click create project. You see that that all just got created for us. So we've got our projects wired up correctly, but now we want to be able to add the tasks. So if you remember, the way that this is set up, each project can have many tasks, which means that we need to maintain a parent and child relationship or a header and detail relationship between the projects and the tasks. Now, I've already created a task input table, so I'll move that over to our project tracker. And I've actually already created that modal, a very similar modal to the create project. I've created the create modal or the create task modal already. What I haven't done so far is I haven't gotten a way to associate this project ID with this project ID for the insert that we're going to do. So what I want to do is I've actually added a column here to click to add tasks. So I'll hit that. I will unhide this column. And on this, I've got this set up to where I can add a task. So if I was to click on it, I can actually set and I'll add that task. I've already done a little bit of pre-wiring with this, where if I click on this add task, it is going to set a couple of controls for me. So it's going to set the project ID as the column in the row that I select. So if I select first project, it'll grab that project ID. Second project, it'll grab that one. Similar with the project name. And I have built a control panel with global variables here of this project ID and this project name as a control. So if I come back here and I click on that add task and I can then look at my controls, I can see, okay, I've got my first project and my project ID for it. If I click on the third project and I come back, I can see that project ID and the project name. So it's already set up for me in the way that I want it, which is perfect. The only thing that I really need to do here now is on this action, I need to open up that create task modal. So I'll come in, I'll go to open modal, and I will go to the modal create task. And so now when I do that, it's actually going to open it up for me. It'll set those controls and open it up. I'm going to come in, create task. I'm going to add a little bit of dynamic text here. And so that project name that we're just looking at, I'll grab that and make sure that it pops up. So now that we can see which project that we're working on. And if I look at the button here, I need to make sure that this is actually wired to do the insert row for me. So I'll click, I need to do insert row. I want to put it into that task tracking input table. It's got the task name correct. It's got the task owner correct. It's got the due date correct. The one thing it's got wrong is this project ID. So I'm going to come back over here, project ID, and we can see that there now. I'm going to also go ahead and make sure that I'm following the other practices that I did, where I'm going to clear out the controls in that container. And I'm going to close the modal. So all of the same things that we did in the previous on the create project. So now if I go to my project tracker and I want to add a task, I can click add task. And in this one, we'll say first project, first task. and we'll assign this one over to me, and we'll click Add Task. And you can see now that that task was inserted into that table with the association of that project ID. I'll add one more for the second project. Again, you can see second project, and we can say second project, first task, and we'll click and we'll assign this one over to Donnie, and we'll give him until the 13th for this task. And I didn't give myself a due date to start with, so let's just give myself the 10th. Now you can see this both got inserted. We've got the project ID, we've got the task ID. The one thing that we're missing here is that project name. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take this project ID and we're going to add a new column via lookup, and we'll look back up to that project tracker, the input table, and I'm going to grab project name based off of the project ID, and we'll pull that over. And then we've got this set up, and we can say project name. And now we've got project name, task owner. All of this is correctly associated. And why that's important is anything that we might want to change on the project. So in this case, we can go ahead and we can update this from second project to Donnie's project. You actually see that happen real time, because what we've created here is a link where one project can have many tasks. So if I add another task to this first project, go first project, second task, assign this one over to me, and we'll give myself a due date this time, click Add Task. You can actually see that that will start to fill out. In this way, we can actually manage and maintain that relationship that we're looking to do with the projects and tasks. So we built the projects, we built the tasks. Let's go ahead and add the comments to this. So if you remember in our object model, project can have many comments, but we also want to go one step further and just get the latest set of comments that we have here. So once again, I've actually already added a column that's a little bit pre-wired. So I'll unhide this column, and this one's set up to trigger our add comment modal. So you can see this is set up with the first project. We've got a table here, and we've got this set up to actually run and fire. And the action is already here. Actually, just click that button and you can see it. So we clear, well, actually we want to do that in separate order. So we want to insert the row, clear the control, and then close the modal. Same set of actions that we've been doing on the others as well. So if I come back and I click on my add comment, oh, I haven't actually wired up the controls for this yet, or the actions for it. So the easy thing for me here is that all I have to do is actually duplicate this sequence. I'm going to swap it over to click to add comments so that it would be on that select. Set project is already done. Set project name is already done. The only thing that I need to do is swap over, and I'm going to make it to where my update is to open up the add comment modal. So if I click here on add comment, I can now see add comments for first project. I'm going to say first real comment, and we'll click add comments here. And now if I click to add again, we'll actually see, okay, we've got that first real comment, and we'll say second real comment. This is all inserting into the comments table that I wired up, or that I built previously, with that project ID. The other thing that I have actually done here is I've actually created an aggregate table where you can see the one project ID now actually has 3 different comments to it. And I've set it up to where I've actually joined all of those comments into one column so that I can see all of my comments in one spot. So when I come back to this table, I'll actually grab that project ID. I'm going to add a new column via lookup, and I'm going to go over to our comments table, grab that aggregate table, and I will grab all the comments together based on project ID. And let's move that over to here, and we can then do a little bit of formatting. And now you can see the list of comments being added one after the other, row by row. Let's just go ahead and click on this and just call this project comments. Okay. So we've added in our project. We've got tasks firing to actually be associated with the project. We've got the comments set up to actually work together correctly. The last thing that we're really missing is some place to see all of this information about a project in one spot. So that overlay or that modal that I showed you on the demo earlier, if I actually click on this, I've got this set up to be able to run pretty quick. I'm going to unhide this project info column. And we're going to do the exact same thing we did before. We're going to take this action sequence. We're going to duplicate it. We're going to make it on the project info. And the other modal that we're going to open up is going to be the project details. I've got a little bit of wiring to do on the project details. So I want to use some dynamic text here. And one of the cool things that I've done is I've actually built a child table off of our project table that is actually filtered by this project ID and the project name. So anytime that project ID comes in, this table will be filtered down to just one row. And what I can do with that is I can actually build out a little bit of dynamic text where I can come to that table, if I can find it. Where are you? There you are, project tracker control table. And I'm going to grab the project owner on that. And I'll click OK. And it will actually grab the correct one for me. And then I'm going to grab the project due date. Click OK. And we will add the project status. And click OK. Now, I've already wired this task list and the comment history to be filtered by these same controls so that whenever I open up the project details, this table will just show me the tasks associated with the correct project. The comments will show me just the correct comments associated with that project. And let's try it out. So let's click project info, and we can actually see tasks and comments. Similar on this one. We've got a couple of tasks, and it looks like my comments are not actually wired correctly. Let me actually just go in here. Let me see, what are you pointing at? Comments base table. And that's what I need to do is I'm actually going to swap this to be off of the comments input table. Let me just make sure real quick, targets. And we will add one target. That's what we're missing here. We are missing to hit off of that. And I will set this up and make sure that you are going to that comments base table. And there we go. We don't have any comments directly for that. So we got the wires crossed a little bit, but we got that corrected. So the last thing that I actually want to do here is I actually want to add a couple of buttons, because if I'm in this project, maybe I want to add a task or I want to add some comments to it. So I will add a new button and we'll move this up to the top. And we'll grab this and we'll say create task. And because I've already wired up that other modal, I can actually use this to open up the modal and to say create task, the modal create task. And I'm just going to duplicate this and I'll grab it right here. And I will now adjust this one to open up the modal for add a comment. And we'll say the properties, and we will set this to add comment. The very last thing that we'll do with this is for this modal create task. On this, we're actually going to now set this, instead of closing this modal, we are going to open up the project details, and we'll do the same thing on the comment, where now instead of closing, we will set it to actually open a new modal, and we'll do the add comment modal. Oh, not add comment. We will set that to be project details. So tying this all together, now that we have this, I can come into Donnie's project. I can notice that he has only one task. Let's go ahead and create on Donnie's project his second task. Let's wire this up. We'll give it to him. We'll give him till the 14th and we'll click add task. And you can see his second task has been added just directly right there. If we want to add a new comment, we can say our demo is almost complete and we'll click add comments. And you can see that comment is now available directly there for Donnie. I didn't add a close on this, but we can actually close that out. And you can see that we have actually built, really, we've taken from the bare bones of those input tables, we've added a couple of additional things, and we've built out a really nice project details view where everything kind of comes together in the end. With that, I'm going to go ahead and close. The last thing that I want to show, if you did want to build this by yourself, we actually have a really nice quick start that has been built that can actually take you all the way through all of the bits of building up those input tables, all the bits about actually doing the wiring yourself. It is fantastic. It might take you 90 minutes to 2 hours or so, but end to end, you'll actually be able to build up this project tracker. There is a ton of documentation that is out there for you. Definitely make sure to go to the data apps help.com or help at sigmacomputing.com/doc/data apps and get access to all of these. Highly recommend it. A ton of material out there ready for you. With that, I will go ahead and close. The last thing that I will say is if you would like to connect with me, I am available on LinkedIn. I'm more than happy to talk to you about your experience building out this application, and definitely be sure to drop a note. Thanks so much. Have a good rest of the conference.